forward.
All right. So good morning, Love Rising listeners. We are so excited to welcome our guest, Chel Hamilton, today. And her topic is so fascinating. This is one that Claire and I are really so excited for. And so she kind of presented it to me. And so even better, I always love when people kind of come with expertise or something that's really pulling out their heartstrings that they want to share with our listeners. So today we're going to talk about the 3 languages of your subconscious mind and how you can really harness those languages to make changes in your life more easy and fun. And a little bit about Chel, I guess I first found her, I think it was almost 2 years ago. She was on Steph Gaudreau's Harder to Kill podcast. And of course, you guys, we had Steph on our podcast. Oh my gosh, that was a long time ago. But, and so that's kind of where I stumbled upon Chel. And I always find myself coming back to her. She has a Meditation Minis podcast, so easy to find on iTunes. And I always kind of find myself coming back to it if I need a little bit of assistance when I'm meditating, or if I just know that I need something quick to kind of like get me out of my headspace and center me. I always revisit her Meditation Minis because they're very soothing. They're quick. And so it's great, you know, especially for our lady listeners who tend to be busy women, just, you know, rocking at life and struggling to slow down. So before I get too far into things, let's jump in. As a certified clinical hypnotherapist in practice for over a decade and over 20 years of working with addicts and alcoholics, Chel has helped thousands of people let go of habits and thought patterns and redesign their lives for more joy, freedom, and confidence. Through her guided meditation podcast, as I mentioned, Meditation Minis, with over 12 million downloads, she has helped people create more calmer, clearer, and happier lives. Her mission is to be an agent of change, a powerful, positive change for the planet, and her passion is to be that light that sparks in people's eyes when that change occurs. I love that last sentence. I love your mission so much. So welcome, Chel.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm super excited that we finally got to connect.
Yes, I know, me too. And so let's jump in. Let's share with our listeners kind of your story, how you got to be where you are, and kind of maybe how those 3 languages of the subconscious mind tie into your journey.
Yeah, so my journey is not that interesting, really. I don't like to talk about my journey. It was a journey of resist, and the universe kept persisting. There was no way I was going to be a hypnotherapist. There was no way I was going to do a meditation podcast. And those are the 2 things that changed my life the most dramatically. So I guess the only part of my story that I think is really valuable would be that if there's something that you are seriously resisting that keeps coming up, perhaps set aside the things that you think you know about it, that contempt prior to investigation that a lot of times we do, and just be open to exploring the possibility of whatever that thing is, maybe for 30 days, maybe for 6 months, and just explore what you don't actually know about the thing that you're resisting.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And it is so fascinating when we do listen in and when we do explore. And I love that you say explore, because Clara and I do talk a lot about approaching these things, especially when we find resistance, with playfulness and curiosity.
Totally. Yeah, those are key. Playfulness, curiosity, be willing to be like, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm totally going to fuck it up and it's okay.
Yeah. I love that.
Can we give a little bit of maybe like a real world example of what it looks like to be resisting? I mean, I think it makes sense, but I think a lot of times when we're in that mode, it's really hard for us to see that we're resisting it, right? And then when you kind of like look back hindsight, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I was resisting becoming a hypnotherapist. But what did that actually look like for you when that was happening, the resistance? Or what does it look like for people when they're in the resistance?
Yeah, great question. So what it looks like for me, and I have found with many, I won't say all, but many of my clients, it looks very much the same. When the thing comes up, your immediate knee-jerk reaction is, oh, hell no. And then it comes up again, and you're like, no way. And then it comes up again and again and again, and it's that knee-jerk, like, no, I'm just going to shut that down. That's not my, what it really comes down to is these things that we resist often are identity shifting changes. And we resist the shift into a different identity. So you might hear yourself saying things like, oh, I could never do that because I don't want to be associated with gurus or whatever, whatever the thing is that you have judgment about. I didn't want to do a meditation podcast because I had done proper Buddhist meditation, proper meaning like silent focal point meditation techniques for about 2 years and found benefit. But I was by no means a meditation teacher or guru or expert. And I didn't want to be known as that. That just seemed like very hoity-toity to me. Like, I like to drink alcohol sometimes and I F-bomb. And so I'm not that kind of person who should be teaching meditation. So those would be some examples, I think, that just it's a very knee-jerk, shut it down, I know better. Even though like with the hypnotherapy, I literally knew nothing about hypnotherapy other than, what I had seen on TV and films about, you're a zombie. I knew no real information about it. And yet I was sure it was not for me.
That's so interesting. Could you tell us a little bit more about that experience and how did you follow your intuition? How did you get those signs or those nudges to kind of, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so I had made a deal with the universe that any job that fit 5 very easy parameters. In fact, I'll even tell you what they were. I was a single parent at the time. I was a bartender, and my son's father was no longer going to be available. So I needed to make some changes very quickly. And the rules that I had were, if I needed more education, it had to be 2 years or less, because I knew I could do anything for 2 years. Once I was out of whatever training I might need, I needed to make, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, I needed to make at least $36,000. That was super low too. $36,000 the first year, and could quickly scale to 68. Again, Los Angeles prices, and even that's pretty low. Or if my schedule was, and that was with a flexible schedule, so I could be home for my son when he got home from school. Or if I couldn't have a flexible schedule, then that number had to go up to like 42, I think it was, as the starting amount, so that I could afford childcare. So 4 of my 5 things were super practical like that. It had to fall into these parameters. And then the 5th one was, and people can make up their own parameters. I say 5 is a good number, though. More than that, you're probably overcomplicating things. The 5th one was the thing that I knew got me excited to get out of bed in the morning, and that was to help others, something that is in service to others. And I told the universe, anything that comes into my world that hits at least 4 of these 5 things, I will put on the list to investigate the possibilities. And the hypnotherapy thing came up, and I was not putting it on the list. And it actually hit all 5 points. And I was like, that's some bullshit. I'm a practical Midwestern girl. I do not fall for bullshit like that. My flaky LA friends might be candles and sandals enough for that, but not me. So you can hear like the voice of resistance, that voice of judgment, the voice of identity, and resisting a new identity. And
I think judgment is key there. I think that's a good, like, a key to resistance. Like, if you're judging something super hard, you're having a reaction to it. right? Like you're having that like if you don't care about something, you won't even take the time to judge it, right? But if there's a part of you that kind of cares about it, it's going to start to do this. It could start to do this hard judgment thing. So I like that stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. You hit the nail on the head there. The whole idea that if we're totally neutral about something, okay. But if you have all this like, rah, then there's something to investigate. I'm not saying that if you have that like dukes up judgment thing going on, that whatever it is your path. I'm just saying that you get to investigate it so that you can at least become neutral about it, even if you don't choose it as your path.
Totally. And sometimes this is a little bit of a tangent, and sometimes when we feel like, I think about the thing that gets me the most fired up, like to do the work that I do, it makes me feel not judgment, but like a lot of passion. You know, it's like the idea of a woman being feeling weak or overpowered or not strong in her own body or judgmental of her own body. Like those things, they don't create judgment, but they create like a fire. So there's kind of a slight difference between, you know, that judgment kind of like or like this like fire that it's like, I have to do something about that, you know?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Can we dive into that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would actually love to see you run your own experiment. I'm a big fan of experiments, 1 week, 30 days, 6 months, a year, never more than that. Then you get to like reevaluate and decide if you want to continue. That's how I did the podcast. I was like, I'll do a 1-year experiment and then I'll reevaluate. And I wasn't even consistent with uploading the first year. I was just like, I'll just kind of like do stuff and then I'll reevaluate. So when we have this fire like you're talking about, all the things that I heard you say were actually standing against something. And when we stand against something, we're meeting it with the same, we'll say negative energy. I don't like to use those words, but it's that same like wall of energy. And it can totally still be incredibly impassioned, but more effective if we reframe the things we're standing against into things we're standing for. So let's go down your list again. One of the things that I heard you say that you stand against is women not feeling strong. I think that's the way that you, not feeling powerful. So instead of standing against them not feeling a certain way, to stand for them, stepping into their strength, to stand for them, gaining their power, and to turn all of those things that we see as negatives into positives. And this will, as a practice, tend to increase our ability to nourish ourselves rather than to get depleted. Because when we're standing against something, it's really easy to get depleted, to get frustrated, to be exhausted. It's exhausting to stand against something. Imagine being somebody who feels passionate about moving the world to overcoming sex trafficking. And they are standing against sex trafficking, and it's bad, and we can all agree that it's a horrible, horrible thing. But taking that stand is not very engaging for others to join you on your journey, because you tend to seem angry when you're like that. And it may be righteous, but it's still not very appealing for others. But if instead you are standing for women having freedom and women having little jobs even in their homes that they can then afford to feed their family, and the opportunity for income so that they can remove themselves from situations that aren't nourishing for them and their kids if they have them. And, you know, lots of times they do because they are the ones left and the men go off. But to stand for instead of against. And that removes that judgment piece. And here comes my kitty. She always loves to come. Yeah.
Yes. Hi,
Big
kitty.
time.
No, that's so. Oh, hi, kitty.
Cute.
That's so cute. That is so good. And I've heard that said in a lot of different ways, you know, like that, but that standing against is exhausting. Standing for is enlivening, or is attractive, or is magnetic, or removes that judgment piece. And it's like, I didn't even have that question, but the way that I framed my input created that question, and that I needed that answer. So thank you. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think, it all comes back to the energy. And so if we all have our mission, and majority of us, our mission isn't to show up with anger and to show up with this like block energy. A lot of it's to show up with love and open arms and abundance and everything like that. So it's like when we shift, and that's so simple to begin to shift your mindset. So anyone listening who's going there, the wheels are turning and you're going, what am I standing against? And just shifting even the words we say is so powerful to really shift our energy. And when we open up the channels of energy, that's more love and abundance and open arms. That's when we start to like manifest. And that's when we start to create the changes that we really want to stand for in this world. So I'm so glad that came up.
Yeah. That's the beauty of conversations.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's dive in a little bit too into the three languages of your subconscious mind. Can you elaborate on that? I'm so excited to learn all that you have for us today.
Yeah, so it actually fits in really well with what we're already talking about, of course. A lot of times when we're trying to make change, we know what it is that we should be doing. Right? And anytime we use the word should or shouldn't, it's a judgment. So we know we shouldn't eat the cookie if we're trying to lose weight. Or we know we should eat the cookie if we're trying to gain weight. Right? Like a cookie can actually be a really good thing if it's in alignment with your overall goal for yourself. So when we're talking about the things that we know we should and shouldn't do and the changes that we want to make, we usually frame all of that in logic and reasoning, which is your conscious mind. And our conscious mind talks to us a lot. It thinks a lot of thoughts. That's what it does. And we're not responsible for the first thought, but we are responsible for how long we choose to stay in it. So not judging our thoughts can be very helpful. Just go, oh yeah, I just thought that crazy thought. Okay, bye-bye. Rather than like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Then we obsess about it, right? It's just like, crazy thought. Okay, don't have to follow it. So all of change actually happens in the subconscious mind. That's the part of our mind that does. That's the habits, that's the feelings. Those are the deep beliefs, the deep tapes that we run. And science has shown through functional MRI studies that the subconscious mind power is over 80% of our full mind power. Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, it's probably closer to 90. Now, some of that is running things like our heartbeat and making, blood, and it's doing all these things that are completely unconscious, but there is a level of ability to dive into that. So when I talk about the three languages of the subconscious mind, none of them are words. We like to try to use our words to make change. And the reason why we talked about reframing our words previously is because what words actually do is they make pictures for our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind language is pictures, feelings, and tone of voice. So when somebody like Brene Brown says, speak to yourself, and I may be misquoting it, but I'm paraphrasing it, speak to yourself like you would speak to somebody that you love. That's because tone matters. If I talk to I also have a little dog. If I tell my little dog, you're such an asshole, he thinks I love him. tone matters. And by reframing our words, we create new pictures. So instead of thinking, let's say that the cookie is not in alignment with your goals, and you think all day long about the plate of cookies. Don't eat the cookie, don't eat the cookie, don't eat the cookie. The pictures are cookie, 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 eating cookie, cookie, cookie. So you would reframe that into ignoring the cookie and eating, I don't know, a banana or something that's more in alignment with your goals, because you might be starving, so not eating anything is not going to work. That'll make a new picture. And the other piece is feelings. This is one of the reasons why visualization is really helpful, because we get in touch with the feelings of the thing that we're wanting to create and the excitement around it and the motivation, the joy. And that speaks to our subconscious mind, which is the part of the mind that actually does all the things, has all the feelings, makes all the habits, and runs most of our day via autopilot. So letting go of the shoulds, the shouldn'ts, and reframing things so that you're really focusing on creating powerful pictures for your subconscious mind, powerful feelings that are motivating, not shaming or guilting. Because your subconscious mind, like an animal, will do some things if you're trying to beat it, but it's going to backlash in a way that you don't want. Like, it's just not a good idea. So making them powerful positives instead. And watching the tone of voice that you're using in your own self-talk. It would be better to over-exaggerate it into, the cheerleader. Even if there's a part of your mind going, that's some bullshit, you can go, yeah, and we're just having fun, and it's okay. Which brings that play piece in. And with that, I think I'm complete. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, it's so good. And I love how these things are things that we've talked about, or I've thought about, or I use all the time, but it's like you've put them in this beautiful framework. And Kylee knows how much I love frameworks and organization and just this kind of simple, oh, there's 3 ways and this is the way and this is why. But it's interesting that tone thing really resonates, because a lot of the work I do with my private clients is to help them change the inner mean girl voice, right? That's really kind of what it boils down to, is how can you actually not engage or change that inner mean girl voice that seems to be so incessant. And I always say, the inner mean girl voice doesn't completely go away. It's not like you just say goodbye and she's gone, but over time, repetition over time of new patterns, a lot of this, a lot of retraining the subconscious mind, the tone of her voice changes. And that's the biggest kind of shift that I've noticed in myself and in clients as well, is that she never completely goes away, but she does, the tone of her voice changes. It becomes less harsh. It becomes less loud, maybe less overpowering. And so, yeah, I think it's an interesting shift that you start to see in your subconscious patterns, that tone of voice shifting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes she's a little snarky. Sometimes she's just sassy.
Yes. And, one thing that everyone should go listen to the Meditation Minis podcast, because a lot of I guess what's been the most powerful thing for me after I did start to incorporate meditation all those years back was starting to really feel. And so when you said, have those feelings, and I feel like that is the one thing that really takes meditation from just trying to get quiet and trying to, kind of bring the mind into one place to actually creating, I guess, and manifesting and creating the life that you truly, truly love. I feel like when you bring a feeling into a desire, or even just a feeling into where you are and the abundance that you're already in, I feel like that's when we really start to let go of this feeling of lack and just feel more like our true selves. So I think that's so glad that you brought that up.
I totally agree with that. It's a beautiful way of saying it, more of our true selves. And for people who don't meditate and think that they can't meditate, please be clear that my podcast is not a silent meditation practice. It is guided. It is short. It's 10 minutes. I have really bad ADD. I wanted to make a show that I would actually listen to, and I don't like listening to a lot of stuff. I find it irritating. I find it too long, or, whatever. So it's short. They're very specific to changing a feeling state or a thought pattern. And one of the things that I have found over the past couple of years is the most powerful meditation practice that I do now is actually what I call micromeditation. And it's those more consistent little moments of mindfulness where you just stop, you breathe for a moment, you recenter, get calm and clear so that I can make a better decision. I can make a clearer choice. And with some practice, I can often do that in literally one breath in at this point. Now, if I'm super overwhelmed, it might take me a little bit longer than that. But I have found that absolutely life-changing to be able to just boom. It's like, there was a show where there was a witch or a genie or something, and she would snap her fingers. Maybe it was like I Dream of Jeannie did her head. Maybe it was, Bewitched, she did her nose. There was someone, but she snapped her fingers. And you can just change it that quick. It's the most powerful thing I've found so far. Maybe in a year I'll find something else, but we're going to go with this one for now. Yeah. Micro meditation moments.
Yeah. We had Greg McKeown he wrote the book Essentialism on podcast.
Oh, I love that book.
Yeah, it was an amazing episode. And he's very wise, but he, in the book, he talks about how it's so important to do these little escapes. Like every 90 days, he says, put, a day in your calendar. And he wasn't saying that he didn't agree with that anymore, but he was saying that, no, now it's more just about that consistent mindfulness. Can you take a little escape in the midst of a busy day? Can you take a little escape when you have to make a decision and you need to recalibrate inside, right? Yeah. And I've been noticing this in my own personal practice. I, for years, pretty much have a very consistent morning, 20-ish minutes meditation / journaling / whatever I'm kind of working on. And recently, just in the last 6 months or so, I haven't been feeling the need. I haven't I've had very full life, and I've had a lot of stuff going on, and I've been feeling pretty grounded in it, and it not and so I still have kind of a morning practice, but there's not so much just sitting. And what I do throughout the day is these 3 breaths to kind of come back to myself. And it feels just as grounding as having this 20-minute practice in the morning, but also kind of more efficient, if for lack of a better term, just to be able to be okay, I'm just going to close my eyes and take a few deep breaths and then come back to whatever I'm doing. And I think that, we can, especially with this theme of this month, this mindfulness theme, it doesn't have to be these long meditations or these kind of self-deprecating, I'm going to sit for an hour every day and focus my mind. It can be it can be 3 breaths, 3 deep breaths just before you eat, right? That could be your mindfulness practice. So
and 3 deep breaths before you eat actually has all kinds of physiology benefits because it engages your parasympathetic response, which means you're going to process the food more effectively. 3 breaths. The beauty of going someplace in your mind is that once you go someplace, you know how to get there again. And once you go there several times, you can get there quicker. Just like, any place driving. You don't have to look, you don't have to wonder. You're just oh yeah, I know how to get there. So that you can literally do it in a couple of breaths and go to that calm place inside and just be okay, we're chill now.
Can you talk a little bit further about like that, going to that certain place in your mind, like for you, or, and of course there's no right or wrong when it comes to meditation, but when you say something like that, are you talking about like almost visualizing? Because a lot of your meditations are like, I always find myself meditating in a very like serene spot. I have this one place that a lot of times I'll go to, which is actually in Montana, and it's at the top of this mountain that we like I just remember it was like the most grueling hike, but once we got to the top, it was just like, oh, this place is amazing. So when you say something like that, would it be, is it good for us to be trying to maybe return to this serene picture in our mind to more efficiently and quickly kind of go there throughout our day?
Great question. It depends upon your learning and information style. So if you are a highly visual person, pictures are super easy. You're like, boom, got the picture. Okay, now I'm there. If you're highly kinesthetic, then trying to get a picture is going to drive you crazy. You got to go just for the sense of it, just for the feel of it. And if you're auditory, you're probably going to go for the sense or the feel of it. And you might even make like a little like in your mind to give yourself a little bit of white noise from the world around you. So I say do what works for you, and your learning style is going to color that. But if you're trying to picture something and it's not working, stop trying to picture it.
Yeah, I'm pretty visual, so that would make sense now.
Uh-huh.
How would you,
you can just breathe it. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
How would you know what you are? I mean, I know a lot of people, like you talk a lot about these like learning styles, but honestly, I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I am.
Okay. So here's a really easy test. Close your eyes. Like for reals right now, close your eyes. And we're just going to do a couple of things real quick. The first thing I'd like you to do is picture a green field and a big tree. And as you're able to picture that, nod your head yes. And if you can't picture it, just let it pass. Next, I'd like you to imagine yourself in a movie theater and you're watching a beautiful brown horse run across a field on the movie screen. And just imagine that horse running across the screen. And as you imagine that, nod your head yes. And if you have difficulty for that one, just let it pass. And next, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get a sense of yourself riding a bike, feeling the wind in your face and in your hair. And as you get a sense of how that would feel, nod your head yes. And if that's difficult for you, let it pass. And now open your eyes. So, Clara, which one was the easiest or most real for you?
The bike.
Yeah, I could see it on your face. You had a smile.
It felt really good. I was like, oh, I love riding my bike. Wind in my hair. Yeah.
And Kylie, which one was it for you?
All three were really like pretty instantaneous. I would say the first and the last.
Okay. All right. And we usually have a primary and a secondary learning style. So my guess is you're primarily visual, and then you have a very strong secondary kinesthetic. I imagine for you that if you can't get a picture of it, you can't get a feel for it though.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then for somebody who the middle one is the one, they may be auditory. They also may be a super high analyzer type. And so imagining what it would be like, and the theater brings to mind, we've all pretty much everybody's been in a theater before. They've probably seen a horse or something like a horse running across the screen. So if you're auditory or a high analyzer, you're more than likely going to pick that middle one because you're like, well, I can kind of imagine what that would be like.
I have so many people in my mind that I'm like, okay, I'm going to like assign them to listen to this podcast, and they have to do that assignment. I'm so glad you brought that up.
My pleasure.
Interesting. I think one thing that's kind of coming up for me too is, we're talking about these languages of our subconscious mind, and we're kind of talking about change. I am really curious as to how can we, because when you're going through change, obviously, as we kind of mentioned, there's a lot of resistance, like it comes up. And so it's, you know, when you're doing something you enjoy, using and listening to these languages might be more easy. But when you're going through something where there's resistance, where you're kind of feeling that wall, how can we harness them? How can we use them a little bit more efficiently? Is this making sense? Kind of like when you're feeling that resistance, when you're feeling that blockage, and maybe you're not tapping into them as easily as if you're kind of free flowing and feeling good.
Yeah. So a couple of things come up for me when I hear you sharing and asking about that. One thing would be that I like to think of things that I'm considering changing, like I said, as experiments. You know, we go to the store, we try on different outfits. Some outfits are more us than others. Sometimes we take something home, it sits in our closet, we never really wear it. Other times we're like, oh my God, I didn't even know how awesome this would look on me until I tried it. So changes like that, changes like trying on different things, and maybe something like, I never liked yoga pants. For years and years and years, I didn't like yoga pants. Now, like, I love yoga pants. I don't know what changed. Something did. I would even wear yoga pants in public now. I never would have done that 5 years ago. So it can sneak up on you too. I'm like, I'm going to wear yoga pants in public. What?
I know. That used to seem weird to me too. And now it's not weird. Not weird at all.
Yeah. Yep. So change can be like that. I think keeping it playful. And now that you know about the pictures, the feelings, the tone of voice, those things can support you in trying on the change that you're thinking might be a good fit for you. You know, the truth is most people go around in life thinking about all the things that they think they might want to do and researching it and investigating it and researching it some more and investigate before they ever even do anything. Like, you can watch all the videos in the world, read all the books in the world about other people riding a bike. Until you actually ride a bike, you don't know anything about riding a bike. Now, then you ride a bike and then you figure out, do you like mountain biking? Do you like road biking? Maybe you don't like biking at all. Who knows? Maybe you like BMX trick biking. But until you do it, you don't know. So the faster you just get in and try on the things that you're thinking you might want to change, the quicker change is actually going to happen.
Yeah. What about the people that, and I'm not one of these people, I'm like, I maybe to a fault jump in and do things when I like shouldn't, when I didn't read anything or watch any videos, you know, and I'm just, I'm going to do it. But I know that there are people that don't want to do anything until they've combed through all the research. And so there's definitely got to be a good balance there. I've definitely gotten myself into some hairy situations by just like a great example is like the first time I went skiing and I just got off the lift and like literally just went straight down the hill and almost died. And like, so, yeah. So it was like, you know, so there's this balance. So when is there a way that we can kind of see like you're jumping into this too fast, or I'm just need to start? Like, is there some parameters or some guidelines?
Oh, well, yeah. So everybody's going to be different, but let's take your example. Knowing what you know now, how would you now start skiing the first time?
Well, I wouldn't have gone up that lift with my friends that all skied like before. I would have like started on the bunny hill, you know, like they told me
probably want to learn how to like stop and turn.
Right.
On not so steep of a hill.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you can pick up a guitar and start noodling about with it. That's not going to necessarily cause injury to yourself or others. But if you're watching all the videos, reading all the books, and you're spending 3 weeks researching how to do something without actually getting out there to do it, then perhaps that's going too far. But even when you get out there to do it, you start on the bunny hill. You figure out the things you need to know in order to stay safe. For sure. Although I love your enthusiasm. I've made those mistakes too, but mine usually involved getting on an airplane with $100 and no plan.
I love it.
I've been there. I've done that.
And after doing that a couple of times in my life, and it worked out okay. Now I'm like, I think I need to have like $1,000 in the bank, well, 500 in the bank, 100 in my pocket, and some idea of where I'm going to sleep and eat at least the first night.
So I think one thing that kind of comes to mind as we're talking about like slowing down a little bit, strengthening things as you need to go is there a way that we can kind of strengthen these languages? If we do tend to have predominant kind of primary ones, is there a certain way that we can still strengthen all three?
Yeah, so let's not confuse learning styles with the languages, first of all. So learning style, yes, the more you use another learning style, which would be auditory, kinesthetic, or visual, the stronger it's going to get. But you're probably still going to have a propensity to one. And that's okay. I'm a huge fan of us really playing to our strengths and trying to find other people to pay to handle our weaknesses, because we're just going to move forward faster. So there's that. And then with the three languages, it's just a matter of using them. Paying attention to the pictures that the words that you're telling yourself are actually creating. Your mind can't see the don't, so let's not talk in don'ts. Your mind can't really see the should and shouldn't, and that adds that tone of guilt and shame. That's why I'm not a fan of shoulds and shouldn'ts, because it's crappy pictures and it's crappy tone, which is both crappy feelings. All of it. It's all of it. Just drop kick the shoulds and shouldn'ts to the curb right now. So getting clear that these are the things that are actually affecting your subconscious mind, which is where the majority of your mind power is. I think it was Haidt. His last name is Haidt, but it's spelled funny. I want to say Jonathan, perhaps. The Happiness Hypothesis book. He has this beautiful metaphor of the conscious and subconscious mind, where the conscious mind is like the little rider man on the elephant. Not that I think that we should ride elephants, because I think that's really cruel. And the subconscious mind is the elephant. And as the little like smart rider man, you can be up there directing the elephant, telling it go this way, go that way, to some degree. But if you constantly tell the elephant it's not allowed to eat or drink or sleep, that elephant is going to decide, screw you, there's some food and water, I'm going that way, and then you just got to hang on. So this is being a smarter rider for your elephant, by really learning how to reframe things for yourself so that the pictures match what you want to create. The tone is encouraging and loving. And the feelings then also are going to be powerful and positive and motivating. Most people who have insomnia worry all day long, off and on, not necessarily constantly. When they think about going to sleep, they see struggle. They see not sleeping. They see, what are they actually programming their subconscious mind to do that night? Exactly that. That's how powerful the pictures and the feelings, because there are definitely feelings created there when you're struggling with sleep. And the tone of, so terrible.
Yeah, so that, I feel like that's a really practical kind of tip right there, is like, when you think about what you're trying to change, so if it's sleep, what are the pictures you see? Like, do you see struggle? Do you see laying in bed and tossing and turning? And that's great. So, and anything, if you see, let's just say a diet or something, what are the pictures you see when you think about a diet? I mean, I know I see terrible pictures. I don't do diets, but like, it's like, oh, that feeling of, or there's a feeling, I get a feeling too, of like,
yeah,
of restriction, of deprivation, of feeling like guilty. So if you try to do a diet, what are you going to feel? That That's great.
Yeah.
So
Your
great.
elephant's going to be like, that's crappy. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, one thing that I'm so glad that we kind of circled back to is, in my mind, the micro meditation, which I love, and I've also been kind of practicing newly with some guidance from Brendan Burchard's book, High Performance Habits. And one thing that I think is really powerful with those is that it kind of like makes you have to call yourself out throughout the day, because you have to kind of tune in and go, what was I just thinking? What was I just saying? And what was I just feeling? And those are some really quick, powerful ways to just check in with yourself, because of course this is a practice. And if you listen to this and then you expect that, okay, perfect, I'll just change my voice, I'll change the pictures in my head and life will be dandy. It doesn't work that way. But I think that like the micro meditations, so you have to start a micro meditations podcast now, is it really powerful to just stop in and go, okay, what are the three things? You know, what are my three languages? What's going on with them right now, and how can I be more conscious and mindful around them?
Beautiful. I love that idea. I'll consider it.
So how do you feel about affirmations then?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little resistant to affirmations. So suppose there's something there for me. So affirmations, there's a couple of things about affirmations. Affirmations do work. I've definitely seen them work. But a lot of times I think people start too far. We have an inside bullshit detector that's pretty powerful. And if you take somebody who actually, by their own way of living, demonstrates on a daily, weekly basis that they don't like themselves very much, like, let's go extreme. You're eating really bad food. You're out drinking every night. You're sleeping with people that you have no business sleeping with. You are, always in between not having a place to live. We're taking an extreme example. If you were to tell that person, okay, what you have to do is every morning when you get up, you have to look in the mirror and you have to say, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. Their bullshit detector is going to be like, bitch, no, you don't. What did you just do last night? That shit ain't real. So if it's that much of a jump, it's just too far. It's too far, too fast. What you can do, though, is you can say, you know what? Each and every day, I am finding new things to like about myself. Each day, and today is one of those days, and I am finding things that I like about myself more and more each and every day. Like, then your bullshit detector doesn't really, it's like, well, I guess that could be true. And you set yourself up to find things to like about yourself. And once you start liking yourself, then other things start to change in your choices. I always tell people when they come to me and they want to have more self-esteem or self-worth, I'm like, well, we don't get self-esteem and self-worth by feeling or thinking our way into it. We get those things by acting our way into it. And it is by our actions that we build self-worth and self-esteem. Just like with our actions, we build integrity. When my words match my actions, people say, wow, she can be counted on. She has integrity. She says what she means what she says. That is powerful. And you can do it in affirmations, but you have to watch your inner bullshit detector and take it perhaps a little bit slow.
Yeah. Tony Robbins talks about 2 millimeters, like the difference 2 millimeters can make, like between, he talks about it in like a posture, right? It's like if my posture, I'm wearing black, you can't really see, but if my posture is like this and I just move 2 millimeters, like that's a huge, it changes my entire outlook, right? So it's like we can't go from really shitty self-worth to I'm amazing all the time. We have to go to I'm willing to see some amazing qualities in myself, and just and that can make a huge difference. Just like that little 2 millimeter change in our breastbone. If we sit up a little bit taller, how that changes our complete outlook and when someone sees me sitting like this versus sitting like this, it's going to make them see me differently. I mean, everything changes. So it's not that those little things don't make big changes. It's just that we have to be incremental about it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you build on it, and you just keep building.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, in the terms of these three languages, you were saying that the subconscious mind does not think in words, but the words can build pictures. So
yes.
If we watch our words, then we can create better pictures and better feelings in the subconscious mind. Right.
Yeah. So words do matter. They just don't always matter in the way that we think they do.
Right. Right.
Oh, this is all so good and so amazing, Chel. I'm so excited to get this podcast out and have so many people listen to it. It's going to be, I mean, the content is so good. Thank you for sharing this with us.
Oh, it's totally my honor and privilege. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
So where can our listeners find you? What kind of work can they do with you? What's any information that, you know, they can kind of find you?
Oh, girl, things are shifting. So, well, the meditation podcast, Meditation Minis, it's on Apple Podcast, it's on Spotify mobile, and then you can also find it on the web and your most Android app, podcast app catcher things. I am just getting ready to take sabbatical for I don't know how long to write a book.
Yay.
And
congrats.
Yeah, it's called Bulletproof Tranquility. It's a how-to guide. So that'll be out this year. And I have some albums, some longer guided meditation albums that I'm working on, and some courses. So I would say just head over to chelhamilton.com and get on the newsletter list that I never email out to. And when I have some things that are in the works available, you'll get the email. And please don't click that it's spam if you hadn't heard from me in 6 months, because I don't email people. Working on that.
Oh, so many good things. So I'm so glad we could catch you before you kind of, you know, dive in deeper and get the stuff that you need to get done to get all your magic out to the world. So thank you so much for coming on, Chel. You are absolutely amazing. We are so honored to have you. And thank you for all you're doing in this world.
Yes,
thank you. And thank you guys for what you're doing in the world as well. It's been like I said, an honor and a privilege to be here today.
Beautiful.
Thank you.